picture this. You're sat at a party explaining how you would love to teach in the UAE, and your uncle, let's call him Dave, sorry Daves, by the way, starts telling you all these different stories and misconceptions based on things that he experienced when he traveled to Dubai 30 years ago. Now, what I'm going to tell you is that many of the different things that Dave has said are misconceptions as the UAE develops extremely rapidly. As a result, lots of people will have misconceptions about Dubai that I hope to bust in this video. In a previous video, I spoke about the misconceptions of teaching in Dubai that you can check out up here. I've been a teacher out here in Dubai for the last 3 years, and this is my 4th year, so I feel like I'm able to share some of the misconceptions that people might have about living in Dubai and then talk you through how they are misconceptions. Before we jump into the video, make sure you check out my website, teachtraveltriumph.com. Not only have I got a range of different free videos and blogs available on that website, you can also check out my guides that will help you with the process of getting a job out here in Dubai and moving to Dubai too. Misconception number 1, you have to speak Arabic. I covered this briefly in my misconceptions about teaching in Dubai. No, you don't need to speak Arabic to live in Dubai. If you did need to, I would be absolutely doomed. Is it useful to speak Arabic? Yes and no. I think those individuals who do speak Arabic do appreciate it when you try to speak their local language. You don't need to speak Arabic though. For the most part, most people speak English, although it can be a little bit broken. Next misconception is that you can't buy pork. As explained in Guide 2, there are certain places where you can find pork. You can find them in certain supermarkets, Spinneys, Choithrams, Waitrose, and it's in a non-Muslim pork area. So they'll sell the obvious things such as bacon, sausages, pork loins. You will also find different candy products that contain gelatin too and other things like that. And generally there's only a certain handful of restaurants that sell pork breakfasts and products. So it's important to think about where those are. If you go into a food court in a general mall, you won't find pork on the menu. You'll have to go to certain pubs such as McGettigan's as an example. So there's a kind of true and false to that. Next misconception is that you can't drink alcohol. This is false. Similar to pork, you can find alcohol in very specific shops. You won't find it in the supermarkets. You'll find it in shops such as African and Eastern NMI. You'll also find it in certain restaurants too. You won't obviously find it in food courts and things like that, but yeah, you've just got to speak to other people and you'll find them usually attached to the hotels. So there's an element of this that is true, but for the most part it's false. You can drink alcohol. You can't drink alcohol in public, but you need to go to those areas that serve it and consume it there. Next misconception is that all food and drink is imported. I suppose there's an element of truth to this. There is a large import rate here in Dubai in the UAE, and lots of different fruits and vegetables and all sorts of different products get imported from around the world. For the most part though, you will find local products that are grown here too, so that's also important. So it's a true and false thing. I think import increases the prices here in Dubai, but yeah, you can find local products too. Next misconception is that Dubai and the UAE is not safe. This is a huge misconception. Yes, there are areas in the Middle East that are perhaps a little bit more in turmoil, but the UAE in the Middle East has recently been voted one of the safest areas in the world. This country is the only country where I would feel safe leaving my phone and belongings on the table while I pop to the toilet and know that when I come back, that they're still going to be there. I've done it before, especially when I was writing these guides, where I would pop to the toilet with my laptop and all the different gear that I would have out, knowing that it's just going to be safe. This also reflects on nighttime. Walking at night, I feel incredibly safe. I know there's a lot of surveillance about, but that adds to the security of things. And it means that, yeah, I just generally feel safe at night. Obviously, I'm not a female, but my partner would echo these words too. So it's an incredible country with amazing safety, massive misconception there. Next misconception is that girls are expected to wear abayas. This is false. In other areas in the world, this is true, but here in Dubai, this is false. There is, of course, other areas in Dubai where this is true, and girls and guys need to wear more respectful clothing. If you go to religious areas, for example, the Sheikh Zayed Mosque in Abu Dhabi, there is an expectation that you're more thoughtful with the clothing you choose to wear. Generally speaking, when you go to indoor areas such as the public malls, there is is an expectation that you're a little bit more considerate with what you choose to wear there. However, there are leniencies there too, but of course those rules still apply. So going back to rules being strict, just make sure that you're considerate with what you do wear and try not to, you know, push the rules too much, because there are times where people will enforce the rules. So just be cautious with that one. But for the most part, girls wearing abayas is false. It's important to also understand beachwear. For an example, you're okay wearing beachwear on the beach, but when you step off the beach, you do need to wear a t-shirt and things like that. So there's some truth to that too, and making sure that you're considerate with the clothing that you choose to wear. Next misconception is a big misconception, and it's an important one to discuss. You have no rights. This is false. There are all sorts of different rules, regulations and laws that are in place to protect the population here in Dubai. It's important to mention, and there are individuals that are taking companies to court when those rules and regulations have not been considered, and the individuals have won their cases, which means that the laws are in place to protect the population when it comes to work and labour. Next one, they will take your passport. There's an element of truth to this. I was surprised when my passport was quote unquote taken, but that's taken so that they can do the admin process of putting the visa in place in your passport and things like that. As a law that's recently been updated, employers are not able to hold your passport if you request it back. It's a really important law, and that has really recently been updated. So that's been put in place as a right for employees too. Misconception, kind of, you can't hold hands. This is kind of true. Technically, public displays of affection are illegal. As I said before, there is leniency towards this. You will see going down the tourist areas, couples holding hands and things like this. However, as a general rule of thumb, public displays of affection are illegal. So you need to be really cautious about this one too. And that goes back to the rules that I spoke about previously. Final misconception is actually one that blows my mind now, and that is that you can't have a baby without being married. This was true. This misconception was true only a couple of years ago. If you had a baby and you weren't married, there would have been a chance of jail time. Now it's a false misconception. You are actually allowed to have a baby without being married. Of course, I would still, recommend it because things take time to come into place. But generally, in terms of the law, you can have a baby without being married. This is as long as the husband or wife take responsibility for the baby. So that brings me to the end of the video, sharing many misconceptions about living in the UAE. By the time I publish this video, there might be even more misconceptions based on the laws and the way that they've updated. So make sure you've subscribed to the channel to see any further updates that I create. It's free to do, quick to do, and you can always unsubscribe at a later date. If you haven't yet had a chance to like the video too, that's always really appreciated and helps the channel out. The guides, as I've mentioned, are available on my website, teachtraveltriumph.com, and I look forward to you checking out the free blogs and other videos that are available on the website too. Hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Until then guys, I'm out.